What's up, guys? Back today to share a little bit of a recap of 2018. A recap of all the releases from outside of music that happened in 2018. I'm super excited to get into this episode because there was so much great music, and just going back through everything and checking it out again got me excited about what we have been doing. And even though sometimes it's a lot of hard work, that there's so much music that we're able to get out into the world. And I'm just super grateful for all the artists that trusted in me and in my company and trusted us to get it out into the world. So first of all, I want to thank all of them. We'll talk about each of them as we go through some of their releases, and we're going to hear some clips from all of their releases. So this is going to be a long episode, but I hope you enjoy it. This is going to be both a video here and also a podcast, so I hope that you'll be able to either watch here on YouTube, or if you're listening on podcasts, you'll enjoy just listening to some of the releases, a couple clips of what everyone has been up to. So without further ado, I want to jump right into everything that's been happening and the first releases of 2018. So grab a cup of coffee. It's going to take a little while to get through this all. I got mine here, and in my nice new hoodie, new merch in the Outside of Music store. I got some of that happening. So just going to hang out for a little while and talk about all of these new releases. We're going to go through, and I'm going to tell a little bit of a story about each one as far as I know it. And you can go to the artist websites to get more info about their specific projects. I'll try to make sure that I let you know their names. You can Google them and find all of that out. But we're going to jump all the way back to January of 2018. January of 2018, we had the launch of an EP. Was the first Friday. Albums always come out on Fridays these days. So the first Friday of 2018, we had Peter Nelson, great trombonist based here in New York City, released his Clock Stories Volume 1 with his band. That also was a video project. He was able to get his band recorded. I believe they recorded at Big Orange Sheep in Brooklyn, and they did audio, they did video, so you can check some of those out online. Clock Stories Volume 1, and we are going to hear from that record. We're going to hear the second track from that. It's called Blue, Gray, and the Sleeping Clock. The other thing to note is if you're enjoying listening to some of these guys' music, that a lot of them, most of them, I'm pretty sure all of them, have a podcast episode dedicated to, checking their music out and talking to them. So I would know that we did one with Peter all the way back in January of 2018, so you can check that out. But I wanted to let you know that there's more information on all these people. I just wanted to kind of give a bit of a, not surface level, but a dive into what they're up to and let everyone go and check all of that stuff out for themselves. So moving on into February of 2018, it was a little bit slow start to the year, unlike what's going to come in 2019, a big explosion of releases at the early part of the year. However, okay, so the next release that we had was from James Hall, another great trombonist. What can I say as a trombonist? I want to, get trombonist music out into the world. So excited to have James Hall. His project was called Lattice, and James collected a lot of great music there. He was inspired by Speak Like a Child, that great Herbie Hancock album, to include some flute on there and trombone and a nice band as well. So from that release, we're going to hear Shoy. Shoy is one of the first tracks. It is the first track from the album. And check out James Hall. I think it's James Hall Music. And James is now located in Fort Worth in Texas. He is there with his family, and can't wait for whatever is coming next from him. He's got lots of time, I think, to compose these days. I've been seeing on Instagram his latest musings, latest compositional ideas. So I'm excited to see what he comes out with next. So enjoy Shoy. The next thing is I want to give a shout out to Dan Pugac, who we helped out with distribution of his record from a Swiss label called Unit Records. We helped with the US distribution for that. That's Dan Pugac Nonet Plus One, and they were nominated for a Grammy this year. So congrats to Dan. Because of licensing and stuff, I'm not going to put the audio of his stuff in here, but their tune Jolene got a Grammy nomination for Best Instrumental Arrangement. So super happy for Dan and his wife, Nicole. And they had a great arrangement of that tune, Jolene, and it's nominated for a Grammy, so congrats to him. That came out in February 2nd here in the United States. And yeah, so we just want a quick shout out to him. Can't share that here, but go and check out from Unit Records, Dan Pugac Nonet Plus One. Moving ahead to March, we had a release from an amazing alto saxophonist who I've had a chance to work with a bunch here in New York, and his name is Andrew Gould. Andrew Gould is a New York area native. He's a Long Islander, and we also had him on the last release of 2018, which just came out, this Outside In Experience Volume 2. But before we get into that, we're going to play the title track from Andrew's record. The record's called First Things First, and this track is also called First Things First. And Andrew has played with everybody. He's been subbing with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra. He goes and tours all over the world. He's very into some of the Latin scene here in New York. So check him out, Andrew Gould, Gould. Just go ahead and Google him, and you'll find it right away. The record's called First Things First, and the name of the track as well. The next release that came out in April 27th to be exact, is from a great Israeli trombonist who lived in New York for a long time, and I think is hoping to get back to the city more. We just talked the other day, actually, and that's Jonathan Volchek. He is an amazing jazz trombone player. He had a lot of influence from Slide Hampton, and we've talked about that a lot. We first met when I went on tour with Eyal Vilner, a big band leader. We went to Tel Aviv and all over Israel. That was in 2015, I guess a couple of years ago now. And he came to New York in February to record and do some various things, but he recorded in this new format that we've put together at Outside In Music. Usually that's what I call the Outside In experience, which is trying to recreate the old school mentality of recording in jazz, which is focusing on acoustic music, focusing on not utilizing all the new fancy recording techniques, which aren't new or fancy at all, but just like overdubbing and all of that kind of correction and all of this stuff, kind of focusing on just going in, playing the music, focusing on creating a good vibe, good sounds, and it's acoustic music, and having it be like it would be a performance, having it be natural and simple. A lot of times it's my philosophy, if you follow Create, Connect, Repeat It All, if you follow what I'm about, just trying to get music out into the world because it gives people a chance to connect with you. You never know which thing is the thing that people are going to actually find and connect with, so trying to put stuff out all the time in different ways, I find has been very useful, and I think more people could benefit from it if they didn't only release something every 2 years. So at any rate, this was the first session that we did. It was a split session, but Jonathan he jumped right on board, and this turned out really well. He did a piano-less trio and quartet record, trombone with Kush Abadi and Tamir Schmerling and Jonathan. So it was really great. And they called that Two Spirits Dancing in the Dark. It's a digital release only. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify, wherever you like to stream music. But we're going to play, I don't know if it's Jonathan's favorite, but it's my favorite tune from the record. I just thought he crushed this, and I was so blown away in the studio. All the takes were amazing. But we settled on this one. I don't remember what take number it was, but this tune is called Esh. The next record, we're going to May of this year, May 18th, very close to my 30th birthday. That was on May 22nd. We decided to release something that had been in the works for a long time. That was a record that was a quintet record between me and Joe McDonough. And Joe McDonough is a great trombonist here. We met first at the Juilliard School. We both did our masters. We were in the same class. Really great guy, and he's doing all sorts of great things, sometimes playing with the Christian McBride Big Band, and he's teaching at Temple University. Amazing bebop trombone player. I mean, I don't mean to limit him to only that, but just his command of that language has always been something that I looked up to for him, and he's just a great dude. And in 2012, we recorded an album of J.J. Johnson, Kay Winding type stuff, and never came out because we just didn't put it out. And finally this year we talked, and we were like, oh, let's do it. And so that featured, I know I didn't tell everyone on the band on every release, but I just happened to know, since I was on this one, that it was Chris Ziemba, another outside-in music artist, pianist, Dave Barron, another OIM artist, bass player, and Jimmy McBride, who also appears on other records this year, and including some of my own records, Jimmy McBride on drums. So we're going to hear one of my tunes from this record, and you can find it also on YouTube. Joe and I recorded a duet version of it as well as this album version. You can find that online, and also the music is available to be purchased if you're a trombone player and you want to check out this duet. But this was something that I wrote for a teacher of ours both, and it's Steve Turre, and this is called Right Side Up, Blues for ST. Moving along to June, we have a record from a great friend of mine, a lead trumpet player mostly, who's turned to a little bit different vibe here. That's more of a crooner singer vibe and playing trumpet. That's Augie Haas. And Augie plays with Maria Schneider's orchestra. He has appeared with the Harry Connick Orchestra. He's has a Broadway show. He's just all over the place. DMA from Miami. Just a great dude, great musician. And he released a record called Have We Met? It's his debut as a vocalist, and he's been crushing it around town, I know. And so we're going to hear from that. One of the singles that we released, and that was called Pennies from Heaven. Everyone knows that tune. And so without further ado, let's hear from Augie Haas and Pennies from Heaven.
Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortune falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Trade them for a package of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me.
Now going back to our first Outside of Experience recording, Split the Day, that we talked about Jonathan Volchek. We also had on that same day, we did a recording with a great young trio of musicians featuring the band called Paragon. Now Paragon is made up of Emiliano Lasansky on bass, Connor Kent on drums, and Daniel Dickinson on saxophone. A great trio. They had a lot of really, really interesting music that they recorded, and really proud of how this turned out. I'm really happy for these guys. Their band's called Paragon. The album is called Kin. We're going to hear the title track from that album. Here goes Kin. through the summer months here. We had a couple more singles from Augie, we had a couple video releases, but the next album that's going to come out was by a great guitarist named Rafal. Sarnecki. Rafal is also in Lucas Pino's Nonet, which I'm also in, which has had an album out later this year, 2018. And Rafal had an amazing record that came out called Climbing Trees, and there's still great press coming in for that record. And he's just an amazing composer. Rafal is like a very singular voice on the guitar, combining just like the sound and vibe of Wes Montgomery, Grant Green, the old school with the new school, like contemporary European sensibility of harmony and rhythm and contemporary classical music, all of that kind of rolled into one, and that's Rafal. And he's just an amazing composer. I really look up to his composition skills, and just as a band leader, just presenting something really unique, really original. So we're going to hear an amazing tune that also has a video that's called, and the song is called Hydrodynamics. If you want to see that video, you can find it on our YouTube channel. Moving along to August of 2018, we had a really exciting release, two really exciting releases, but the first of which is a debut from a young big band leader. His name is Brian Krock, and Big Heart Machine is the name of the album. It garnered a lot of great press this year. It was produced by none other than Darcy James Argue, another great composer, and it has a totally kind of different vibe than a lot of the music that's on the label, but it's very interesting. It's very dense compositionally, but just very interesting. And I don't know exactly what to say about the music. You kind of just have to hear it. So I'm just going to jump right in. This is Brian Krock's Big Heart Machine, and we're going to hear from this record the first track off of that record. It's called Don't Analyze. following that, August 31st, we had the actual album, the full album by Peter Nelson that was kind of previewed in the original first thing that we talked about today, the Clock Stories Volume 1. And so that was called Ash, Dust in the Chalkboard Cinema. And you know what I really enjoyed talking to Peter about on a couple of the Over Here podcasts is his approach to blending artistry and accessibility in his music, and just having a really clear vision for artistic vision for his music and for his titles and telling stories through his music. Definitely heavily influenced by Ambrose, the great trumpet player, Akim Missouri, and he had an album that come out shortly after that this fall called Origami Harvest that has just a lot more like big picture storytelling to it, and that's evidenced by some of the song titles. And so from Peter's album, I think that we are going to check out a tune that closes the record, almost closes the record. It's the second to last tune. It's called Behind Kind Eyes, Thank You. And this album kind of reflects a story about Peter's life where he was having some physical challenges with playing and his relationship with music, and it kind of is a really cool thing to check out and know the story. So you can go and check all of that out on Peter's website and on all the stuff that Peter has going on. So go ahead and check that out for yourself. But here is Behind Kind Eyes, Thank You. Moving into September of 2018, we had a great follow-up release from a band made up of three young musicians here in New York. Philippe Lemm on the drums, Angelo Di Loreto on the piano, and Jeff Koch on the bass. And that's the Philippe Lemm Trio, and this is their second record. And they did a huge tour this fall. Super happy for those guys. They played a sold-out set at Ronnie Scott's in London, and just also, I think, a sold-out show at the Concertgebouw. I can't say it correctly, but it's in Amsterdam. Maybe it was in Rotterdam. I forget. But Philippe is from the Netherlands. He's from and lived in Amsterdam for a long time. I'm not sure if he's originally from there, but I know we had an interview where we talked about all that stuff. So you can go check out that Over Here episode with Philippe Lemm. And, you know, Philippe has a really interesting way of leading his band, and he's very persistent, and they just make things happen. And I'm really, look up to him in terms of his tenacity and the way that he's able to make stuff happen. And they have a very, unique sound. It sounds like their band. They've developed it over a while, and they have a kind of unique approach to playing tunes because they play standards and they put their own spin on them, but then they also focus a lot on playing original music and also covers of some stuff. But we're going to hear now a tune from that record, Emerge. It was also a single from the record, so I hope you enjoy Philippe Lemm Trio, Emerge. The next record was a live record that came out in September, a couple weeks later, on September 21st. This live record is my band, Here and Now, and it's from a live gig, from a birthday gig in May of 2018. I turned 30, and what better thing to do than make a live record? So we did that on May 23rd. My birthday is actually the 22nd. But we had a great time making this record. It's just the full takes, just raw, kind of just whatever happened that day. And compared to the original No Arrival record that came out in April, it's the same tunes, but played in a totally different way. Maybe not totally different, but everything is just expanded out a bit, and gives a chance to hear my band Here and Now. That's Jimmy McBride on drums, Dave Barron on bass, Alex Wentz on guitar, Glenn Zaleski at the piano, Lluc Pino on tenor and bass clarinet, and myself. And you get to hear all the guys kind of stretch out and play that music. So that's Here and Now live in New York City. We played at a great venue here called SubCulture, and SubCulture is just a great venue, great people that run it, and really great audio and video setup there. So watch out in 2019 for some videos that are going to come out from that session, but for now it's a streaming only Spotify release, Here and Now live at SubCulture, and from that we're going to hear a tune of mine called Never Enough. Moving along to another of our outside-in experience sessions, we had a great Catalonian tenor player who was able to come and play some music, bring in an all-star band. That's Lluc Casares. I can't say his name correctly, but that's as best as we're going to get. And he made a record called Sketches Overseas. He currently is enrolled in the Artist Diploma program at Juilliard, and that's how kind of we met, kind of through connections at Juilliard. And I'm really happy for him. His album actually is garnering some really great awards in Spain, where he's from, and I would encourage you to go and check out his social media channels and his website so you can get the details of that. I don't know when things are being announced, so I don't want to give things away too soon, but I know that some great, awesome stuff is happening for Lluc, and I'm really happy for him. And so this band is really stacked with Joel Ross on vibes, Philippe Dizak on the trumpet, Addison Fry on the piano, who was a Monk competition semifinalist this year. Also Mark Landowski on the bass, and also part of that Juilliard AD program, and Francesco Cianilio, also a drummer for the Artist Diploma program at Juilliard. All those guys got together and made this record. We're going to hear a tune, again, I can't pronounce it, but Very Fun, I think. It's the first full track on the record. And it's really, really interesting music, and can't wait for you to check it out. October 12th, we had a new release from tenor saxophonist Paul Jones. Last year he released, 2017 I'm referring to, he released a great record called Clean, and kind of as an in-between release here, he recorded a great EP in his living room, and he's getting into audio engineering and kind of doing this DIY kind of thing, and he recorded a nice trio record with himself, Leo Sherman, bass player, and Jake Robinson, drummer. And so we're going to check out one of the tunes from that release, and that's called Chagall. And next, another release that kind of puts a lot of musicians together. That's Lucas Pino's That's a Computer with his No Net Nonet, in which Lucas is the leader. Lucas plays in my band. I also play in his band. And Rafal Sarnecki is also on this. So Lucas's Nonet is made up of Jimmy McBride, Desmond White, Glenn Zaleski, Rafal Sarnecki, Andrew Gutauskas on Barry, Alex LeRae on alto. Phil Dizak has been playing a lot of the live gigs, but on this recording is Matt Jodrell. We made this record a couple of years ago. There's Lucas and myself. I think that's the whole band. But this is a really interesting record. It's a follow-up to last year's record that came out called The Answer Is No. That's a 2017, and so 2018, that record is called That's a Computer. There's a really, really interesting story behind that, and I want you to go ahead and listen to the podcast with Lucas, who talks a little bit about that story, a little bit of hint at it in a Downbeat article. But if you want the full story, you'll probably have to go talk to Lucas about it. But it's a really, we have a lot of shared experience. We met together at the Juilliard School. It's interesting when you know the story behind somebody's music and the life experience that led to a lot of the stuff on this record. But amazing music. We're going to hear one of Rafal Sarnecki's contributions to Lucas's Nonet, just to kind of tie everything together here. A really difficult piece, but is super great, and also features the guest vocalist that's on this recording. That's the great guitarist Camila Meza, and she sings on here, Sueño de Gatos.
con sus crueles uñas y con su sangre sanguinaria. Duerme con todos los anillos que como círculos quemados construyeron la geología de una cola color de arena. Quisiera dormir como un gato con todos los pelos del tiempo, con la lengua del pedernal, con el sexo seco del fuego, y después de no hablar con nadie, andar sobre todo el mundo, sobre las tejas y la tierra, intensamente dirigido a cazar las ratas del sueño, del sueño, del sueño, del sueño.
November was a bit of a down month for us. Most people release Christmas records or holiday records in that month, and I didn't want to compete with others when not having any holiday albums from outside of music. So we ended up not putting anything out in November, but then in December we closed out with one last EP, and that's the Outside In Experience Volume 2, and that featured a number of the leaders from different sessions and some other musicians as well from some of the sessions that we've had. So this session is a video release mostly, but it's out now on Spotify. It'll be released on video in January of 2019, but it's already out to round out the year. I wanted to celebrate everybody who had put stuff out this year or in previous years. And so on this, we have Owen Broder of Cowboys and Frenchmen, also Ethan Helm of Cowboys and Frenchmen. They've got 2 records out with Outside In Music. We also had myself, we had Lluc Casares, we had Addison Fry, and we also had Jimmy McBride, and we had Leon Boykins on the bass. So this turned out to be a cool little session. Oh, we also had Andrew Gould on the alto saxophone, and we played a tune by each of the different leaders. We played one of my tunes, we played one of Andrew's tunes, one of Evan's tunes, and one of Lluc's tunes. And that's what we're going to hear now, is Lluc's tune that he originally called Foam Sanitizer, because he has a funny story about how they don't have that in Spain, that foam hand sanitizer stuff, but just shortened to Foam. So here we go. This is the last release that we had of 2018. This is called Foam. that's it. That's all the releases that we had in 2018. I know it's been a long episode. I hope you've enjoyed hearing something from everyone here on the label. We have a lot of exciting things in store for 2019 and beyond. Always looking to grow the team. If you're someone that's interested in getting involved on the business side of jazz music, creative music, we love to talk and see how we can get involved. So please drop us a line, info@outsideinmusic.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for watching the videos. Thanks for downloading our releases. Thanks for streaming on Spotify. All of those things. I hope you have an amazing holiday season. If you're listening to this, I'm going to release it for your Christmas and New Year's listening pleasure, and it's going to round out the year's podcasts and videos. There won't be anything else until January of 2019. So thank you for your continued support. My name's Nick Finzer, and we'll see you next year.